Social policy and administration is an area that is studied in many disciplines and is relevant in many areas because every sector of society, whether private or public, has an element to do with policies and how those policies are implemented. We want, in this course, to understand how policies and their administration is done in the context of criminology and security studies. But first, we want to understand basic things about social policy and administration. Today, we basically want to understand what is meant by social policy, and then we'll take time to understand why policies are important in any setting, whether public or private organizations. Students are encouraged to read other literature so that they can compare what we have discussed and what is found elsewhere. In addition, I want to encourage students to take note of any issue that may not be clear to them so that they can raise it and then we discuss it during our face-to-face meetings. Let us begin by looking at policies, what they mean and how they apply, more so in the area of criminology and security, and indeed other disciplines such as community development, sociology, economics, among areas. First, we want to understand what is meant by a policy. We shall then look at what is meant by social policy, and then we shall conclude by looking at what is meant by administration. At the end of the program, rather this discussion, we want to understand why it is important, rather what makes policies an important component of organizations. So policies can be understood as the written or unwritten guidelines that governments, organizations, institutions, communities, or individuals use when responding to issues and situations. In a simple sense, when we talk about policies, we simply mean guidelines that are followed when we want to make certain decisions about certain things. These guidelines, they are found in government, they are found in private organizations, they are found in institutions such as learning institutions, they are found at community level, and also individuals may also have policies or guidelines or things that guide them when they want to make certain decisions regarding their finances, regarding their investments, and also regarding family matters. The policy provides the overall intention, direction, principles, and values of an organization or a government in accordance to stakeholders, legal, regulatory, and standard requirements. In other words, when we make policies, we are basically indicating the intention, the direction, and the principles as well as values that we want to observe as an organization, as a government, or as a private entity. And this must be in accordance with the aspirations of the stakeholders and also within the legal and constitutional requirements under which a particular organization finds itself. So that policies should enable organization to look forward towards meeting the standards that have been set by the organization and also those that have been set by institutions outside. What then is a social policy? A social policy now refers to measures taken by governments and institutions to protect that part of society which is in need of economic protection and to ensure their social security and peace. In other words, when we talk about social policies, we now mean certain undertakings that government and institutions have committed to do in order to protect individuals that might be of various needs. This could be children, the elderly, marginalized groups, and persons with disability, among others. Social policy can also be understood as any form, rather informal and structured action taken by the government to address social needs of their citizens, especially in the area of employment, education, healthcare, housing, and sustenance. Indeed, it is not easy for a government to address a problem facing its citizens, or it's not easy for an organization to address problems facing its members without first coming up with policies that offer them guidelines and direction on how to undertake those particular tasks. Administration is the process of directing, coordinating, as well as stimulating activities in an organization to ensure efficiency and effectiveness in the process of implementing certain activities. It also refers to determination and clarification of function, formulation of policies and procedures, delegation of authority, selection, supervision, and allocation of resources so that the purpose of the organization is achieved. However, in the context of social policy, administration is understood as the process of transforming social policy into concrete social services, as well as recommending to authorities aspects of the policy that require modification for effective and efficient implementation. In short, when you talk about administration in social policy, what we basically mean is how the policies that have been documented are translated into actual actions that now addresses the needs of the people that are targeted by a given policy. For instance, if say we have a policy on how to help persons with disability, at that level it is merely a paper. Until we transform what has been documented in that paper into actions and activities that address the plight of persons with disability, then it simply remains a policy. Therefore, when you talk about administration, we mean now transferring what has been documented into actual actions and activities. But it is simply not implementing what has been documented, but also documenting challenges, weaknesses, and problems that have been encountered in the process of implementation, so that policymakers can look at them and see what changes they need to bring to an existing policy to make it more effective and efficient in terms of addressing the needs of the persons that is targeted by any given policy. Social policy and administration can also be understood as an academic discipline, that is, a field of study. Therefore, as an academic discipline, it's understood as the study of how societies distribute resources to address socioeconomic problems in society. The discipline borrows from other disciplines such as economics, history, politics, social work, management, law, psychology, and sociology. They do this, and in doing so, the ideas obtained from these disciplines help social policy professionals to analyze and respond to social problems, effectiveness of the responses that have been given by the government, and also changes that are arising as a result of the implementation of certain policies. Therefore, social policy is an academic subject that looks into the study of social services and how states or institutions implement social programs designed to address social problems faced by citizens. It focuses on a number of areas, including health administration, social security, education, employment services, community care, and housing. It also looks into social problems that are found in society, such as crime, disability, mental health, special populations. This includes children, the elderly, persons with disability, among others. This discipline also tries to understand social inequality with regard to gender, race, as well as ethnicity. Lastly, it looks at the range of responses that have been given by public and private institutions to help in alleviating problems faced by members of society. Therefore, as a discipline, it is quite rich. Here, we simply want to focus on social policy in terms of how it applies within a given subject context, such as criminology, security studies, sociology, community development, social work, among others. Why do we have social policies? We have social policies for a number of reasons. And therefore, our next discussion, we want to look at the importance of social policy. One of the importance of social policy is the provision of guidance. That is, policies define the goals of an organization, the institutions of that organization, and provides guidance about how to achieve the objectives of those organizations. Policies can also provide guidance to the management, board of directors, and other stakeholders of the organization on how to handle new and unexpected issues. Indeed, from time to time, institutions and organizations are confronted with things that are totally new and for which they do not have prior experience. In that case, they may look into their policies to see what kind of guidance or what kind of procedures or techniques they can employ to address those particular challenges. Policies and procedures also enable members of an organization or institution to know where they can seek help from in case they are faced with an unfamiliar situation. This is because policies as written or as documented also indicates who and which personnel or officers are responsible for the implementation of certain aspects of the policy. And therefore, a member of the public or a member of the organization that is unaware of certain issues is at liberty to look for a relevant office or department or institution that is responsible for the implementation of a given policy. In this regard, therefore, all policies should have a point of contact for inquiries relating to that policy so that members of the organization know where they can direct their concerns. If, for instance, you want to report crime, then a policy on crime should clearly indicate which office and at what level a given type of crime should be reported. And again, how should that crime be investigated and how should it be prosecuted? If you are in an academic institution and you are facing an academic issue or financial issue or counseling problem, rather mental problem for instance, again, it is clearly indicated which particular offices can help you understand and address the problems that you are going through. So a policy should indicate the implementing office or implementing personnel so that members of that organization or members of the public are clearly aware of which officers or personnel to approach as and when they need of such information pertaining to a given issue in the organization. Policies are also important in establishing consistency so that established policies and procedures ensure the organizational processes do not deviate or deteriorate over time, even if key implementers such as management and the board are not in the organization. In other words, when policies are made, they are made for posterity, they are made for the future, so that they are not tied to a particular individual holding a particular office. The reason why they're there is that any new member of the organization can be socialized into how to implement those policies. And in doing so, there is an element of consistency so that policies do not change, procedures do not change merely because a particular office holder has left the office and therefore the one that has come cannot in any way just rubbish existing policies without providing adequate explanation as to why he or she is uncomfortable with certain policies. So policies enables organizations to establish proper procedures and proper structures on how certain things are addressed. And in doing so, it encourages consistency within an organization so that practices in organization are not at the mercy of a given individual. Once a policy is documented, then members of the organization are bound by law, in some cases, even the Constitution, to ensure that those policies are implemented. A violation of a policy sometimes can be challenged and at times are punishable in a court of law. So policies become not only guiding principles, but also ensures that there is a standard way, a consistent way on how certain things are conducted in an organization. The other importance of policies is to do with accountability. That is, in addition to setting standards for members, policies and procedures also set standards for organizational managers. These provide guidance to managers on how to conduct themselves and the standards that they will be held to account. However, policies also provide transparency to the rest of members as they discern from the policies the standards expected of their leaders and what they in turn can expect from their managers. Therefore, policies and procedures, if well established and consistently followed, can enable organizations to exercise fairness and justice to its members, as well as the society. The reason why we have policies is so that there is no discrimination or preferential treatment when it comes to certain activities organization. For instance, if it is pay that is guided by policies, then it means that every individual employee that fits within a given job group will earn the same amount across the board if policies are properly followed. And in doing so, it helps in setting standards that members and managers in an organization can follow. When that happens, then it sends a message to stakeholders and the public that there is an element of fairness and transparency, so that the activities in an organization, the decisions in an organization are informed and guided by policies. And when that happens, it encourages fairness, consistency, as well as accountability. If any person fails to adhere to particular policies, then the law requires that they are held to account for their omission or commission with regard to the implementation of certain policies. Lastly, policies are also important in terms of what we call legal protection. Policies, if carefully drafted, they are carefully drafted to ensure that they are compliant with any legal obligations, but also, on the balance, do not bear heavily on the organization. In other words, when policies are being crafted, there must be deliberate effort to ensure that those policies are in line with existing laws and regulations. However, there must be a fair balance so that policies do not load so heavily on managers or come up with conditions that are not possible to implement the organization. And therefore, in this case, policies can provide organizations with important protection against legal action. For example, financial policies can establish the rules managers must follow and consequences for ignoring such rules. Therefore, if managers are put to task about how they spend money in an organization, they can easily point to particular policies within the organization that they used as a guidance when making certain financial decisions. Courts also take policies seriously in evaluating cases brought before them against any organization. If, say, an employee has been dismissed and the employee feels that his dismissal is unfair, then in addition to the labor laws and the Constitution, a court of law may also want to look at employment policies in that particular organization and to see whether the policies of organization regarding employee punishment were adequately followed or not. In that case, policies can become a legal instrument that is used in court of law to provide guidance in the kind of decisions the courts make. And up to there, we come to the end of our today's discussion. Next time, we shall look at characteristics of policies and other aspects that deal with policies. I want to thank you for your time.